The 1990s were an interesting time to be around. Role-playing games were getting a second wind with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, as well as Vampire the Masquerade, and it was also the time that Japanese animation was becoming popular in North America. Somewhere along the timeline of those two phenomenon, this happened. Big Eye Small Mouth, the anime role-playing game. It had about a 10-year run with 3 editions and several splat books and spin-offs being released. But in 2007, Guardians of the Order, the company that owned this game, went under. In 2005, there was another anime role-playing game that was released called OVA. And in 2013, there was a Kickstarter campaign that was launched to create an updated version of the rules. I got my copy of it today, and that is what we're going to be talking about. OVA is yet another attempt at mixing the tropes common in Japanese animation into a role-playing game. I'm not going to go over the setting of this game too much. The premise of the game is broad, and it's safe to call this a universal system. Probably even one that mixes all kinds of genres that you wouldn't expect to be compatible. The mechanics, though, are what make this game really stand out for me. OVA is yet another game that uses a humble 6-sided dice. And the way the dice work is this. When you're asked to roll the dice, you roll 2 dice, and pick the highest number of the results. Though if there's a match between the numbers, you get to add them together. So rolling 2 dice and getting 2 5s gives you an end result of 10 instead of 5. However, if your character has any abilities that would assist them in the task at hand, they instead roll 1 extra dice for each level in the relevant ability. So if your character is trying to lift a car over their head, and they have the ability Strong at level 4, they would roll 6 dice instead of 2. The same rules for matching groups still applies. You add up any sets of matching numbers and take the highest result from the pool. Character weaknesses and other situational penalties have the reverse effect. You lose dice for every level in a relevant weakness. If your penalties take you to no dice, you start off again with 2 dice, and you add 1 extra dice for each negative dice that you should have. Then you roll this new pool of dice, and instead you take the lowest result without adding any numbers together. So back to our lifting a car example. If instead of Strong at level 4, you have Weak at level 3, you would roll 3 dice, since our initial 2 dice would be reduced to -1, and then we'd take the smallest number from the group, and that would be our result. Character creation in OVA is relatively simple. There's a list of abilities and weaknesses for you to choose from, and while there's no hard rules for how many you can take, that's because it's up to the GM to set some sort of limit. The rulebook gives a few examples, 2 of which I think are sufficient for any situation you might need. The first rule is that you can have any number of abilities and weaknesses, but the total value of your weaknesses needs to be close to the total value of your abilities, give or take a few points as determined by the GM. The second being that you're allowed a certain number of levels and abilities for free, but if you want any more, you have to take weaknesses to balance out your new abilities. The catch, however, is that there's also a hard limit on how many abilities you're allowed to have, even if you take weaknesses. Much like any other universal, effects-based point-buy games, there is also an element of customization to your abilities. You can make any of your abilities more effective in some ways, at the cost of increasing your character's endurance use whenever you use them, or you can somehow mitigate endurance use when you use them by making them less effective. So there you have it. OVA, the anime role-playing game. It's a pretty simple game, and it can adapt to just about any setting you can imagine. The only drawback, though, is that a lot of the rules are very similar to one another, and it can easily wind up feeling like every setting that you play is the same. But, with all that said, I am Aaron Dershadel, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, show the entire world by clicking that little thumbs up button. There's probably also a subscribe button too. That's useful if you've already watched all my videos so far and want to know when I make more. That's it. I don't have anything else. No secret words, no more stupid jokes. You can go do something else now. Something like clean your room. Or brew some tea. I don't really care what, just go do something, make something of yourself.